This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Meeting come to order. Let's start with the approval of the minutes, 9/21/23. The 5 people that were here are here, so we can approve. I'll take a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes from 9/21. Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And
I got abstain.
2 abstentions. Okay, public speak. I know there's people online that might want to speak to city space, but if you're here to speak to any other subject, you can do so now. Use the raise your hand thing or speak up. Okay, thank you. There's John. We didn't hold us up. We started.
We just started.
All right. Any communication? Jenny?
So we're gonna wait till the end. I just wanted to go over some number of terms and.
Okay. We'll do that at the end. Remind me. Account balances. This is important. Just have them in your hand. I gave you copies of the account balances. Sharing it on the screen. The highlighted figures are the figures that will be presented this evening as important. You see on the bottom line, this line right here, that open space, the money for the pool has been deducted. Historic preservation still has about 122 in it. We may use that if we choose to fund this project. And there's almost 800,000 in affordable housing and 826,930 in undesignated, for a total of 1,490,000. I also highlighted the fact that the bond has 1,750,000 left from the, we'll go over that when we get to funding. Let's review what we talked about last time. City Space came to us for a funding of $878,000. For their project, the second phase, which includes an elevator. What I'm putting up now is the budget that they presented. For those of you that aren't here, I do hope you were able to watch the video, because there was an excellent detailed presentation by the architect indicating why the project, phase 2 is so, bids came in way high. A lot of detail, and it was very appreciated. The 878 would be matched by 584,000, this figure down here. So when I'm going to turn it over to Burns to do a quick review, because I'm hoping you guys that weren't here saw that. Basically, we decided at the last meeting, and I want to apologize to the committee. I was pushing for a vote, and that was wrong. Our rules don't allow it because it's such a huge appropriation. So I'm glad we came back, and I did get information, which I'll go over on funding and bonds and all that. What else? Before I turn it over to Burns, we have 2 votes this evening. One vote is to actually move forward with this appropriation. The second vote is to determine which way we're going to fund it. Okay? So Burns, floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, so we're looking at an increase in the project, as Councilor Rist said. We went out to bid in May and June and saw a good amount of bids come back in for the sub-bidders and the contractors for the project. Unfortunately, the lowest bid was much increased beyond what we had originally anticipated for the $2.29 million project. The lowest bid was, by Kiter that came in. We had about 5 bids that came in for the contractor. And the subbidders, we had a couple of subbidders that did not, in those particular fields, that did not bid in within those fields. So that went, those areas of expertise went over to the contractors. So the contractor had to increase their prices for the overall bid. When we got the bids back and we saw the increase of over $700,000 of that we had anticipated, we went to our architects and said, well, there's a cost estimate. We expect that the cost estimate would match what the bids would come in at. And they, what they did is they went to Kiter and we went through the cost estimate itself line by line to see what the differentiation in those individual line items are. If you watch the video with Alon, she talks about each of those areas. So I'm not going to go into details about that tonight. So when that happened in July, we hustled. We hustled with Representative Carey and Senator Vilas to locate funding from the state. We have a bond bill that is in place, and we were hoping that we could get promised that funding. If you remember, if you think back to the summer of 2023, there was a lot of farm flooding that happened. And when that started, we realized that we're not going to get this funding. This is not going to happen through this means. So here we are today. We come back. We work together with Mike, Alon, and several others on our building team, as well as Kiter, to look at what the overall anticipated price of the project will be. So what we did is it exceeded over 30% of the cost. So we looked at the average bids, and with the expected inflation, the overarching project now will be $3.9 million, which is an increase, obviously. With that increase in cost, we still want to go out to bid again. We want to do this project. We believe that this is an important project to happen for the Old Town Hall, to create accessibility and a municipally owned building that's on Main Street, and will lead to the next phase 3 of the restoration of the second floor of Old Town Hall. That is generally the gist of the project itself and the increase in costs. If you see here the budget, you can see that there is an increase overall with the inflation, and then the contingency at 10% there. Mike, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Well, I think the budget speaks for itself, and you've explained pretty well how we're going forward with bidding. One of the reasons that we had to scramble and had to eventually reject bids is because this is a public bidding project. So public building, public funds. We have to follow Chapter 149. So when Burns talks about talking to Kiter, this is after the bids were rejected. So under public bid law, you can't talk to the contractors during the bid process. Just the way it is. But afterwards, you can say, well, why were these prices higher? And I really, if you haven't seen what Alon presented, it's pretty detailed. This we think is a true price. We're using the actual bids and building off of that. With what we now understand based on conversations with all the parties involved. I think this project has to move forward. I was very disappointed when we missed it the first time. You never want to go up to bid twice in the project. It's just makes it that much more complicated. But we want to go back up to bid. This building has been something that we've been trying to restore ever since we left it. So we left that building, the city left that building in 2003. And City Space was put into place a couple of years, but City Space was put into place to be the voice of that building. So we're here, the voice of your building, saying this has to happen.
And if I can, I'd like to share my screen for a moment and just share with you as we think about what happens in this building. I know that the CPA is motivated to support this project because it's a historic building. That is part of the CPA. But without the people in this building, it becomes a monument, and it becomes a crumbling monument, really. So I'd just like to show you kind of what's been
You're
happening.
now a co-host.
Thank you. See if I can find my way there. What's happened in the building in the past couple of weeks? Let's see. Let's see, my left in the thing. John Berner's gonna see how many windows I have open right now.
Just thinking. Might want to close everyone except the one you want.
It's been a busy week.
In my absence, while I was gone, Burns had the checkbook, so she also took on some of the treasurer responsibilities.
And our booker has COVID, so.
I'm glad you didn't give him the checkbook. Never mind. I was gonna say something.
Share this way.
I picked it up today, it looks well used.
Gonna be much longer, Brian. Don't worry about sharing.
So you can do that way, right?
Can't find it. Well,
Maybe that.
get the tech experts there.
I got frustrated.
You want to share a window?
Don't want to share, but now you do.
Yay! John, you're my hero. PowerPoint, huh?
This is all in the past week and a half. We've had over 500 people come into the building from Worcester, Hartford, Brattleboro, and the surrounding area.
Mic drop. Okay. Before I turn it over to,
Can I just say one other thing?
okay, sure.
So we've had all of these people come to the building within just a week and a half. This shows you the possibility of what can happen in the building with the second floor built out. To get to that second floor, we need accessibility, and it's necessary for that to happen. One artist, that's sort of the bigger picture. One artist who was showing in a show, an exhibition in the hallway, came in and was like, "What is this building?" And I said, "It's an art space, and we have all kinds of things that happen here." And they were like, "I've never been in here because I never know what happened here." and they were showing their work on the wall. And I said, have you seen the gallery spaces in this building? And they said, no. So I showed them the gallery spaces and they were really excited. And I thought maybe they lived, far away or something. And they were like, gosh, I just lived 5 minutes away and I had no idea what happens in this building. But because of this event, I was able to understand what happens here. And now I can tap into the resources that are here. So we have people coming from all over the region really to see what's happening at City Space, to experience it, to then go out and spend money, to then go out and tell their friends about how cool Easthampton is and how amazing they are feeling because of the reciprocity within their community. And then, they become a part of what we're doing as well.
So that was
Excuse me, Ken?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'd like to chair the meeting if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
I'd like to open it up, then I'm gonna go to committee for questions.
Okay.
To any of the City Space participants online or here in the room to say things. I want to be a little more organized tonight. Then I want to go to the committee to ask about the project, not about funding, project. So City Space, anybody want to say anything?
Yeah,
Marcia?
I'll say something. I was thinking about what I would say, and I was thinking about the fact that there's a percentage of people who live in the valley of these campuses that are having difficulty getting into the building. There's a ramp, but it's not very reliable, and they can't get up to the second floor. But they can't. The building is just. You look at those steps and you say, "Oh no, I'm not going up there. It's just too darn hard." And myself, having knee problems that have come about in the last 4 or 5 years, I can't go up the stairs either. So for me, that building will be, as I think Vern said, a monument. It will be an empty monument that will be crumbling down around us, and we'll have to pay a lot more money to shore it up. And nobody will be inside. It will not be the heart and soul of the community that it once was, where all these people gathered in a big space and talked, played, presented things to each other. So this phase is so important. This phase, the elevator phase, that is the key part to this whole process as far as I'm concerned. Getting access to that space.
Anybody else here?
Carol Smith. Every time I'm one of the bookers for the Blue Room, and every time I take people up to see the second floor that have never been there, they just are blown away. Just totally blown away. Well, why aren't you doing anything? We need an elevator to get people up here. It would be a shame for that space not to get utilized, and all the hard work we put in for the last few years to try to get to this point. So we were all really bummed when, the bids came in, and Burns has been working hard and Mike working hard to hopefully get us the funding so we can go up again.
Anybody else?
Good feeler. First of all, this building is beautiful. It's like you say, people go up in that second floor and they're like, it's like going back in time. It's like people mesmerized. And with all the restructuring and the re-envisioning and the Union Street redo, I know Main Street's gonna happen next. We're doing all this in Easthampton, but are we gonna let this iconic building just not get refurbished and remodeled and revamped and reutilized? It just makes me think that has to happen along with the whole re-envisioning Easthampton. And it's just it's a beautiful building, and it's also a theater space that's going to have 350 seats, and it's a size that you don't see anywhere else. You see bigger theaters, you see smaller theaters. This size is going to fill a need in this community, but in the whole region. So I think that's also an important thing to consider.
Mike, let's see your hand up.
Just one last comment. I think Jamie might be able to corroborate this, but this building has been a linchpin in the Main Street planning for 30 years. This has been dreamed of, in every way. Every time we've looked at how do we redesign downtown, how do we attract people here? So it has to happen. And we certainly grateful that you supported us and we ask for your continued support.
I see Jackie online. Are you speaking, Jackie?
There she is.
Is that on? Is that on?
Yeah,
I heard it.
yeah.
It is a
it's
hoop.
Jackie, are you speaking?
She on mute?
No, I
Oh,
think,
she took her mute
no,
off.
that's on, that's not on.
It has been dinging whenever.
The lights are.
Jackie, hold on, it might be my computer.
We got.
Oh, we did, yes, okay.
That was coming from my computer. There too.
Yeah.
I don't understand, it says echo. Jackie, I don't know why we can't hear you. Can you hear us, Jackie? Say yes.
Yes, she's saying yes.
Anyone else online who can talk?
Hear me now?
Can you? What happened?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thanks so much. Councilor List, you know that I usually come to the CPA committee to talk about affordable housing. Because that's something that have been working on in the city for 15 or 20 years. But I'm so impressed with the work that's been going into Old Town Hall. I use that space, the Blue Room especially, for gathering. It's such an amazing communal center of the city space. The project is amazing. I've been giving money to it and asking other people to give money to it. And I agree with the folks who went before me and just said, like, being able to access the second floor and having that building be accessible is a super important part of this plan. And it's part of downtown revitalization. It's part of making the city an amazing place, more amazing than it already is. Yeah, it's a great historic use of historic CPA funds, in my opinion. And like I said, I usually come here to support affordable housing. I'm actually here to support a historic project today. The ECA has been doing an amazing job of raising the funds for that building, and it would be a shame for this project not to go through. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else online or here?
I've only lived here since last June, and one of the reasons I came to town is because there's so many great arts events going on, and we just go to Arts Walk every Thursday, and then to music events at the Blue Room. It's a really great space. Then on the tour, I'm upstairs, and I go to a lot of music events all over the place, and theater and that sort of thing. And it seems like a great space. It seems like it'd be a good draw. I mean, every time I go to Northampton or some other town, there's a lot of people that come in for shows, and I think it'd be the same here. Go up to Mass Smoke a lot. That town was pretty much dead until they moved in, and they have a huge draw. So I think it would be a great thing to go forward with.
Thank you. Anybody else? Now I'm going to limit discussion between the members. Questions or opinion? Ken, since I interrupted you.
It's about bookings. Like those artists that came in, that was free to them, right?
That was part of the pay it forward, yeah.
So we have a multi-income model where we seek grant funding for programming for artists to come and use the space for free. We received a $30,000 grant from the Community Foundation of Western Mass to do that this year.
Oh, okay.
So there's a series of artists who can access the space who are from Hamden, Hampshire, and Franklin counties. And they get to use the space for rehearsals and put on a performance or two throughout the year.
Nice.
We also have rentals, like Jackie has uses the space on occasion. Other people come in, they have, community events, they have performances. For example, we have, the Valley Jazz Shares is coming in for 2 events, over the next month, which is it's like a farm share model, but for music. And they come and rent the space. They do their own ticketing. We keep it affordable. And we, as volunteers, help to manage the space. We're primarily a volunteer-run organization to help keep those costs low for right now. But as we increase the work that we do, we're looking to increase the capacity and have higher staff.
Like going forward, do you have projections on money coming in, profit? I'll say profit,
Yeah.
but income in. Would you be able to use part of that for the space to keep on refurbishing the space?
Yeah, so we are, part of our plan is we have a business plan that the Blue Room itself acts as a pilot for the second floor.
Okay.
So that it's a microcosm of what we're doing, of what will be happening on the second floor. So there will be rentals, there will be income from grants, and there will be an endowment as well that we are establishing as part of the capital campaign for the building in continuation. We've also received over $750,000 in historic tax credits. How that works is after the project is built, there's an assessment of the work that we have done, and then those credits can be approved and then sold. And then we'll get that money back into the building itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anybody on the committee, other question?
Just a question on how firm these prices are at this one. Are these,
And we have to go back.
you have to go back for bid,
So one
so,
of the reasons we're using an average of the 5 bids we received as opposed to the low number
Sure.
is to try to take advantage of that
Okay.
idea that we're gonna get a very steep bids.
okay,
So we're not going in low ball, we're not taking the high either.
okay,
We're taking the average of the 5 we had and then building off of that.
okay, that makes sense. So this is our best estimate at this point where we could be in a
We
year.
go out to the
Yes.
formal bidding
Right.
process
Okay.
again,
Right.
Anybody else? John?
Well, I was going to say, I can't support this project anymore because we can't support it 100% because I maxed out on the authority. But I do.
I think I understood that.
No, the only thing I wanted to add was that I'm just wondering, is there anything we can do to ensure that we don't just repeat the cycle, given that we're up to me, the amount of support that I feel for the project, and I believe I speak for the Historic Commission, by the way. Is there anything that needs to be done or that we can do to ensure that there's any buffer or anything necessary? Because I can see, we talked about this earlier, pre-pandemic or during the pandemic, the costs just keep rising as time goes on. So the longer it takes, the more it's going to cost. It's the way it appears. So is there anything that can be done or needs to be done so that we don't just come back around and have to do it again?
The only thing I can say to that, John, is get it done sooner rather than later.
Exactly.
Because there's a $354,000 contingency you can see in the budget. That's only 10%. But I know the architect well, worked with her on some projects, and I know that their estimates are really good. And as Mike said, they took the middle ground on them. So in my opinion, you got to go soon because inflation isn't stopping. It's a lot lower than it was. Anybody else have questions for Burns or any opinion they want to bring up?
So I'm gonna be the squeaky wheel a little bit, and I will acquiesce to my friend on the historical committee, because I respect his opinions greatly. But my biggest concern is the overall project and what's gonna happen when we get to phase 3. I know if this is what's happened on phase 2, I mean, since I've been on this committee, I think this is the largest project we've ever supported. It's over $3 million. I don't think the CPA can show anyone more support than what we've shown. I guess my biggest concern is the outside the city, the state, those people that should be chiming in, basically, is my opinion, really haven't. So that's really what concerns me the most, because obviously it's an almost additional $900,000 from where we originally looked at. So that's really it. And that's really all I got to say. So
It was brought up at the last meeting, actually. I think Greg brought it up. long-term look at it.
Yeah, and I apologize. I didn't see the video. I tried 3 different times. I went on my home computer. I went on my work computer. I never got the whole explanation. So maybe I'm talking completely out of my, you-know-what, which I usually do anyway.
No, but that was a good point.
I mean, it just concerns me in general. I know things are getting cheaper, and I know you guys do everything you can to keep the costs down, and I know you basically rely on people to give you the information, so I appreciate that. I know the position you're in.
And I don't know if I can speak to that.
Sure.
So, individuals have come forward with about $2 million for this project. The CPA has come forward with 3.5 million. This community is really been very generous towards supporting this project, and we will continue to reach out to foundations, businesses, and individuals to support it. Something that we did in 2021 is change our mission to expand to the Western Massachusetts area, so that we are serving Easthampton, but we're also serving those artists in Camden, Hampshire, and Franklin counties, so that we can connect with those communities. We find that when we have a theater event in Easthampton, people will come from the north and the south, because we are in a perfect spot in the region. We're like the heart of the Pioneer Valley. And so that is a real opportunity for this place to really galvanize the spirit of those areas. The one area that we really need to find support is the state. The state has given us $400,000 for this project.
That's what I read, yes.
The state has much deeper pockets than either of those groups.
Kind of disgusting, actually.
So we have received funds from the Massachusetts Cultural Council twice for $200,000 for this project. And, you know, we've been helped tremendously. We are working very hard to advocate on the state level to get further support for this funding. And that's really what we're looking towards, along with individuals and foundations and businesses.
I know you're not afraid to work. I appreciate that.
I'm really not. Yeah, absolutely. I'm really good.
I get the passion.
Yeah, and I know everybody knows, and everybody's working both ways. So I am a part of this community. I landed here in Easthampton because of the people here, and the community lifts each other up. And that is one of the reasons why I have stayed here and that I fell in love with this place. And, you know, I think I love a good challenge. I don't like to be defeated. So, you know, this is a project. It's a big project. It's going to be, you know, a $10 million project in the end, which started off as a $6.6 million project. And we're in it to make it happen, to make it happen to the end.
I'm gonna, although I close public speak, Paula, I'll let you speak briefly, please, because we're into committee work. You have to unmute yourself, Paula. You know how to, you did, there you go, up.
Yep.
Okay.
Good evening. The reason we're here is because this is Wally Rapolis. The reason we're here is from what was in Tuesday's paper about the Manhan River the Manhan River project, and and it has to do with the conservation and mixed use. Well, not mixed use, I'm sorry.
The affordable housing project, open space project.
Are you, Paul, Wally, we're talking about the city space project, not the, I'm going to use the term that everybody throws out, Tasty Top project.
Not Tasty Top. The article on Tuesday had to do with Main Street.
Main Street?
Yes,
Okay.
the community builders with Kestrel partnership.
Okay, all right, go ahead. I don't know how that connects you, but.
Well, they mentioned CPA money in the article. That's.
Oh, okay.
I'm referring to the mixed, it's going to be, it mostly is going to be for, it's going to be for 50, we're talking about for conservation purposes, and a smaller portion of it for low-income housing, and how these two were no, it has, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Try it.
Yeah. We're speaking about something that goes into the Manhan River, and we're not confusing this with the Tasty Top project. This is something that is totally different that we read in the paper a couple of days ago, and it would be on Route 10, and the low income housing would be along, from what I understand, College Highway, and the other 45 acres, because we're talking a total area, considering the amount that was suggested be set aside for conservation purposes, and the 11 acres would be for low-income housing. But the thing that we wanted to speak on was the history, as our mother had wrote a book that's right here.
Ollie, I'm not sure how this pertains to the City Space project. I know you have a passion for that project. Can you connect the two for me? Because that's what we're discussing right now. And if you're worried about affordable housing, funds are set aside for that, but I'm not sure how this connects.
It doesn't connect, except in the big picture, that we're looking at the history of the Manhan River and low income housing. Now, I think it would be a good idea to have low income housing with the conservation property of the approximate 45 acres of it. But nothing to do with whatever the Tasty Top project. This is totally separate from that. And nothing to do with the discussion of the Tasty Top project. And what's going to happen with that. I'm thinking about the 45 acres. It was in the paper a couple of days ago. What it is, like I said, and I know I'm repeating myself, 45 acres for conservation land, and the rest of it would be, like I've said 1,000 times before, low-income housing, and I apologize for that.
Okay, Wally, I'm going to cut you off there because I think you've made your point, but unfortunately, we're not talking about that project.
We're talking about the old town hall, correct?
Yes, and just so you know, that project may approach us for affordable housing, low-income housing, as you put it, and there's money set aside for that. So thank you very much. Okay, everybody, back to this project. I am now going to limit it to the committee. Scott, did you have something?
Yeah, I just, first of all, I want to apologize. I wasn't here last month. It was open house at Mountain School. So I had to go there because they paid me. But I was thinking about here, because this is, and I really appreciate what Andy said. I mean, I do think it's important to note that this is, the largest project we've had at least in my time, which I think is like 6 years. I don't know of what, what else CPA has approached that has been this large. And so I really appreciate, waiting another month to vote on it then, and doing that, because I really appreciate being part of it. It did concern me too, as far as the state funding. And one thing I wanted to ask about that, you said that the Mass Cultural Count.
It's the Massachusetts Cultural Council.
Was one source. And one thing that I wanted to know about is whether there is, programs around for building accessibility. Is there funds targeted toward that, and what the exploration of those funds has been?
Absolutely. So we've looked at a number of funding sources, including the Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism, but we've received previous grants prior to this project. We were not awarded this year. The Massachusetts Mass Development Project grant. It's out there, the one-stop grant. We've applied to that a number of times, and it's a very competitive grant. We have a grant application out there now. There's a similar theater project in Adams that was awarded an $800,000 grant. So we are hopeful that we can be competitive as well in that area. There is ADA grants out there. I was just talking to Jeff Bag today about that. It has to go through the municipality, so we are not applicable as the nonprofit to apply for that grant funding. So I did ask him if possibly the city, as the city-owned building, could apply as the lead on that grant. And so we're in discussion about that for the next time around. Obviously, there's so many buildings throughout the city that have accessibility issues. So it's just a matter of prioritizing it.
And is there a scenario where our approving this money hurts that case? Meaning the city will take care of it. We don't need to grant this. I guess because it's about phase 2, because this is targeted toward that accessibility piece.
Right. We have a long-term lease with the city of Easthampton. We maintain the building inside and outside and upside down as the nonprofit 501c3. The city does not maintain the building. So if there was, if this funding was to fall through, we were not to go out to bid, the project would just not move forward until we got that funding in place. So not having this allocation from the CPA would harm it rather than help it.
To be clear, not that it would harm or hurt the build. And I fully support the project.
I think the answer to your question is that your funding isn't making us in a worse position with any grant program that we've applied.
When you said when the Berkshire's $800,000 for, that's a big chunk of what we're looking at.
Right, but we have to match that funding. So we're, in addition to coming to you to request that funding, John, if there was a way that the CPA could help us, you could fund the rest of the project. That would be great. That would, rather than finding the match funding. But this is a match funding project, right? So we are going out to find the additional funding to complete this.
And that can help your narrative.
And that will help our narrative because we're that much closer. And the state, my understanding, and Jess, you might know more about this, the state likes to push projects to get in the project. So get that elevator and entryway built. Once we get to the end of the next phase, that's when they want to put their big chunk of change in, hopefully for that couple of million earmark. So that's my understanding for state funding and their interest in supporting projects.
Actually, that's what the mayor said to me today. The mayor is fully supportive of us moving forward with this elevator. She feels that if it's built, it's going to open doors at the state level. And she strongly supports the way for this moving forward. She has questions on the funding, but we're only talking now, committee members, about whether we're going to move forward. Then we'll talk about funding, how we're going to do it, whether we bond or whether we use the funds we have in cash. So a couple of things the chair would like to bring up, I said before. City space, there is a match of $584,000. As was stated a couple times at the last meeting, these city space people are really working hard to get that, and that makes me encouraged that they're gonna find that money. Secondly, if this money is in place, as just stated, it's not gonna hurt getting grants, it's gonna help, because it's telling the grant funders that they have money, they need us to help them. There's no risk to this.
Can I just interject one, just to be clear, I wasn't saying it would hurt overall. My question was really specifically on accessibility.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if we fully fund that part of it, do we lose an opportunity to get money that's focused on accessibility? And I think the answer might be no, and that's fine. I think, speaking to what Andy said, because this is such a huge project, I just really want to make sure we're putting that all out there.
No, that's fine, Scott. That's a good point.
So it was focused on that.
Yeah. And I would hope that maybe when we put our money in, that kind of grant opens door to that kind of grant, but I don't know how that works. I'm not a grant guy. There's no risk to the CPA funds. We've already appropriated $1,274,000 for this, city council has, but it hasn't left the city CPA accounts. It doesn't leave our accounts until there's a match from City Space. So just so you know, if we say yes to this and the city council says yes to this, still has to have that one piece from City Space, which makes me feel like I didn't know if people thought we were risking anything. Accessibility is huge, and I believe right now there is a big push for that in the city, and this is an accessibility project. I am firmly convinced, because of the inflationary spiral that's facing construction, if we don't approve these funds tonight, and the city council, I'll say the same thing, if council doesn't approve the funds, this project dies. Because coming back in 2 years, you're gonna need an extra $1 million beyond this. So I'm nervous about that decision, and I'm gonna be very frank. I think that's what's gonna happen. It may not die because Burns is on the job, but it scares me if we don't move forward, because that's why I brought it up, John, about how long can we wait? We can't wait. If they can't get out to bid right away, I'm hoping they get the matching funds right away, because the cost is just gonna go up higher. So that's my spiel. Anybody else before we make a motion? Okay, Jess, I knew there was something there.
This is something that's been kind of gnawing at me since our last meeting, and I'm heartened to hear that the mayor supports this project, because, you know, thinking about just something as simple as waiving a building permit fee for a municipally owned building, or waiving water and sewer fees for a municipally owned building that could save $100,000 on a project that doesn't require CPA to pay for, or bond for, or for fundraisers to have to pay for, that bothers me a little
Something we
bit.
should ask.
And I think that's something that should be thought about, and asked of the administration or whoever in the city, because the CPA is the city match. I don't see any other city funds going into this project except CPA. And with ARPA money floating out there, who knows how much marijuana money is floating out? I don't know what the city looks like. I have no idea. But my sense is that we're in a healthy position, and it would be great to see some additional funds coming from the city that's not just CPA as a match to this project.
I actually asked her that. We have capital stabilization, and we have other funds and free cash. She was pretty adamant about the fact that she has millions of dollars in matches that the city must pay for the infrastructure projects moving forward, for the other projects moving forward, even housing. That's not CPA funds. So we should still ask, but I don't think, I believe her because I know the city funding. And I know that like the Main Street project, which is down the road, is another $1.3 million match. And this project here, if we spent $1 million out of enterprise funds just to get the sewer down, but we also have to give, State Highway, I think it's $1 million to match what they're giving us, and they're giving us millions of dollars. So all of that is why we put money into capital stabilization. So yes, I would love it. If I were mayor, you wouldn't have a problem with funding, but then the rest of the city would probably hang me out.
Well, you're looking for jobs.
So, don't go there. Anyway, anything else, Jess?
No, that's just something that's been kind of sitting with me. For
Well, I was
months,
very
and so-
happy to hear.
Yeah,
She does
I'm
have a
glad to
comment
hear
on the bonding, which I'll get to. So just to be clear, if we approve this, then we have to decide how to fund it. Okay, so the motion would be to approve 800, and I rounded it up to $878,000 for the city space phase 2 additional funds. I'm looking at our motion.
I'm just making sure they don't have competition. I'll make a motion that we approve $878,000 for city space funding for phase 2.
Second?
Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your hand. 8-4, 0 against. Thank you. You know how much it means to me. Now let's talk funding.
It's all
I'm
for
gonna
you,
leave
Rich.
this.
It's all for you.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
It's all for you, baby.
Other than that.
Well, it means a lot to me. I'm sorry.
I'm just teasing.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
you like it?
Good night, everybody.
All right, I put this out for you because I did get some information and I want to go over what I've written down. Current balances to be considered, we just saw that in the one, 250,000 retained city match, which is the money we put in the budget this year. 121,000, which is available in the historic preservation account. And there's 826,930 in undesignated. The choices to fund, if we use cash, are right here. 121, 250, and 507 and undesignated. Okay? That's one choice. The second choice is bonding, and I talked to the treasurer at length. We can do a 1-year note, and it's the cheapest from the sense of interest. But remember, next budget year, fiscal year 24, it would cost $500,000 out of our budget to pay for it. A 5-year note is $100,000 each year because we would get straight principal. The total cost of that is $78,750 in interest. 10-year note, $50,000, total cost $144,000. I have reversed my position on this. I am feeling very much that cash is the better way to go. And my reason for that is the bonding costs and the complications of bonding. The mayor has said she can support the project, but she really hopes we don't bond because it is a complicated issue. And there's something else that came up today, which is the IRS sticking it to us. This can get taxed. The bonding can get taxed because
You don't spend it.
if you don't spend it, and this, what is that? Okay. Bonding can get taxed, and why do we want to do that? And do we want to spend? I don't know how the CPA funds can afford $100,000 a year in a 5-year note, but do we want to go up to 10 and spend $144,000? So if we do cash, just to be clear, there's $3,500,000 in the original appropriation. All of this, when we put money aside, it's to reduce the amount of bonding necessary. So anytime we've used cash now, we're reducing the amount of bonding necessary. So this yellow highlighted area here tells you that after we give the 878, the bonding availability out of the 2 million is 872. Now, as Mike will say, there's still $2 million authorization, but City Space would have to come back to increase that 872 to us for phase 3. We could go to that 2 million and ask the city council to approve it. But right now, city council has approved $3,500,000. So we can't go over that. Does that make sense to everybody? We're subtracting this from the bonding availability. It does leave only 319 in undesignated, but it leaves 800,000 in affordable housing. And most of the projects that are going to come our way, like that Main Street project, is affordable housing. We do have a pool project that might come our way. She mentioned she's trying to see if she can get matches and things, but the pool might cost CPA additional funds.
As the article said on that Main Street project, though, it's not just the affordable housing they're coming for. They're also looking to come to CPA for open space money. So just wanted to make a note of that.
Wow.
And I don't, again, we don't have an application in front of us. We don't know what they'd be asking, but I know in your head, you've got this affordable housing money sort of set aside for that project. There's other pots that people are coming to because it's a combined project. So I just want to flag that for the committee so that they're aware.
Well,
Again,
we don't
I
have
don't
the
know how much they're
application.
coming for, so.
And Mayor brought it up too. We could bond for that.
You can bond for that. I mean, that's sort of, when we're getting sort of lower here in the
Undesignated.
in the pot and we're in September, we're not even halfway through the fiscal year and we don't know what's coming down the pike. I think it's important for us to think about, we don't know what's out there. There's a lot hopping out there that we're not aware of. And that if we do spend out this money, the next option is bonding, which has not always been the most favorable solution to this committee. So
I don't like borrowing money myself. It makes me crazy.
Yeah, me either. So-
And I don't want to borrow here, but the other thing to say to that, Jess, is that's all
Speculative.
hypothetical. We don't know what's
No,
coming.
we don't know what's in
And
the
it's
crystal
not
ball.
fair to
No, it's
this
not.
particular discussion to worry about what might be coming.
I agree.
Even the mayor, I said, Mayor, we gonna get another 300,000 for the pool? She says, I don't know. We're looking at that whole thing. Because I thought it was gonna be free
So
cash, but she's not sure either. So
it just makes me come around again to sort of, and I know, again, this isn't the way that we've always done business as a committee,
I agree.
but, we've always been like, whatever comes, we fund. It's this rolling application thing. We may be getting to a point in our community with the amount of work that's happening to start thinking about doing a yearly application process. I'm not saying we need to do it now or whatever it is, but
If it's over a certain number, or if it's emergency, we gotta put
it just
fire,
feels
smoke
pinched right
detectors
now.
in a space. or
Yeah, and this is the first time I've ever felt like it
Yes,
feels a little
I
pinched.
agree with you.
We've never had this before. This
Yeah,
is
I agree.
odd for us. So again, I'm not saying it really impacts the decision making tonight, but it's just something I think we just sort of need
Down the
to kind of
road.
think about, like, let's see how this year plays out and let's see what comes forward. And it may be something, Rich, you'll be long gone. You'll be enjoying your retirement. So you don't even need to worry your head about this. But again, it's just, I think as a committee, it's just something I think we need to maybe think about a little bit as our community is really has a lot going on. And it's not just private development, it's municipal
Well,
projects
the
too.
thing
So,
about that is we've been setting aside 250 every budget year for this project.
correct.
Maybe you don't do that next budget year. Maybe you realize we have to build our coffers back up in undesignated. There's 6 months, maybe 7 months left in the fiscal year. We don't know what's coming. But to me, bonding a small amount like this is too costly. And I'm saying that having felt exactly how you felt when this first came to me. But after talking with the mayor, talking with Jamie especially, and thinking about it a lot, the cash is available. Now, the city does have other funds. If the CPA doesn't have the money for something, city can come up with it. if
For their
they-
own projects.
For.
So maybe they don't come to say, I mean, again, this is all speculative
I
crystal
know, so
ball.
it's hard.
There is a lot of
It's
things
hard
that
to
are
know.
sitting there. It's hard to
It's hard to know.
It's hard to bury the coffers,
Yes.
empty all the money out for one project and know when you know they have a bunch coming.
But it's not gonna be totally emptied out. I mean, there's still some cushion in there. It's not like it's totally gone.
Right.
So,
Just to be clear, we already approved this, so we have to do one or the other.
no, I understand that.
Okay, John.
I want to throw in that I see it is the smallest amount, but just speaking towards the historic preservation money, I'd like to point out that it's my understanding this would be a good time. We just completed 2 of our larger projects that required money. We did the survey, so we surveyed the historic buildings, and we did the canal project, mapping project. And there's a small project involving placards with data. So what I'm getting at is, granted, it's the smallest of the 3, excuse me, but I think this is a good time. we're not sitting on something like we were, where we're like, okay, we're about to ask for something. I happen to know, for my understanding, Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, but we completed those projects. There's nothing.
So there's nothing coming. Historic preservation has to be
The
used.
city clock is waiting in the wings for funding.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just so you know. And I have a concern about, not the reality of using historic preservation in its entirety. Because I'm somebody who likes to release all sorts of restrictions so you can use unrestricted money. Like the more free money you have, the more flexibility you have. So I think that, you know, if we can use money that's designated for purpose, let's use money that's designated for purpose. The concern I have is when the city clock project comes up, oh, we don't have historic preservation money, and the political will won't be there to move forward and fund the city clock project because they don't want to tap into this unrestricted, undesignated money. I'm in favor of this project. I'll just tell you, I support what you were saying, Dan, as far as the funding mechanism of this. I would not bond anything less than $1.5 to $2 million. Something as low as $500,000. Municipal finance is so complicated. There's so many fees. It is just not worth it to bond for something small like this. And so, and I've been through this. Deerfield Academy just went out with a public bond, and it is complicated. And there are all sorts of involved parties in making it a success.
And they're private.
Yeah, and their fees and so forth. So I think we will have a bonding opportunity as a city. I don't know what the project is, and maybe it's phase 3 or maybe it's affordable housing and so forth, but it's got to be bigger than $500,000 in my mind. So I'm in favor from a funding mechanism of using cash that we have here. But I do want to speak just to the city clock being an important historic preservation.
I want to hold you guys up on that because it's not on the agenda. But I can tell you only that it does affect my thinking. It was my big deal, but I got to make choices. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of will to fix that clock on the council without money that can't be used for anything else. And it's going to take a lot more than 120,000. But that's all I'm going to say about it now. If someone wants to put it on the agenda for a different, I can bring up the subject and tell you what I know about it. But it's not on the agenda, so I don't want to, because there's people that might want to speak to it, like people from your church. But unfortunately, in my own mind, I have that same thought. What if we take the historic preservation money? What if we do? I got to make a choice myself, city space or the clock. I'm going to do city space right now because it is a project. It's ongoing. And it's been approved by the council.
Well, it has construction drawings and it's ready to go.
Yeah, it's ready. It's shovel ready.
It's more shovel ready.
Right.
Well, let me ask a follow-up question too, because it isn't necessarily either or, in that my understanding would be we would be months out for the clock anyway.
And it could be next year that you'll have money.
We could have a whole new slot.
So that's what I'm wondering is if we won't renew that pool in time, and given that this seems more time sensitive. I'm not.
Well, that was my thought, that FY25 would be the time that money would be.
Yeah, because I'm not willing to give up the clock. I just don't think it's an either or choice, but if we have to choose which one comes first, to me, this seems like there's much more compound benefit to go right now.
Well, shovel ready.
I just want to thank Greg. The reason I love you on this committee, because I was going to ask him, what's the bonding market right now, Greg? And Greg just answered that question.
Yeah.
Because it's not a good time to bond. And I asked the treasurer specifically, is 500,000 something you should bond? She said, well, you can do a state note, but those are expensive, but they're short term, a state note being what the state can offer. But it's not a good time to bond.
Not if you have cash. I mean, that's just my opinion. So, I mean, we have an option to bonding. And I think in some ways, if we were backed into a corner and we really didn't have any other way to fund this, and there was a time and we had to do this,
push the cost down the road.
Yeah, but I do think it's the wise thing to avoid a $500,000 bond. And I do think it politically, bonding brings up things in the community, and we'd be better served in this community to talk about a larger bond for a bigger amount later on.
So does that mean our $2 million that we've already voted on would then be reserved for phase 3?
Right now, there would be only 872,000 left in it, and that is technicality because the city council approved 3.5 million total for the project. It's in the minutes. If we went out to bond 2 million going back to the city council, there would be a real cry because they've bonded 3.5 million and that would go beyond it. So
But if we didn't
I may
bond-
not be here, who knows?
But if we didn't bond, if we just went with the straight cash allocation
Mhm.
and we didn't hit the bond that we voted on, that would reserve $2 million bond for
In
their phase
bonding
3.
authority,
Bonding authority.
that's important to note. There's a difference in that we could ask the city council to approve extending that 3.5 million to whatever figure it would be. But I would say that I'm not in the council anymore, but that would be the question brought up.
So again, I'm sorry, I don't mean to, I just want to make sure that I understand I'm clear. So this 275, I mean, the 875 would be to supplement phase 2, get that going. That still reserves $2 million of bond authorization plus $1.5 million in cash for their phase 3.
No, the 1.5 million is already spent on this project. If you look at the,
It's a part of the 1,250,000.
1.2, only 250,000.
look up here at the top of this page here.
Yes, I saw the two, I didn't see anything, but yeah.
No, look on the screen. 1.25 million here committed. That's what that 1.5 went to, besides the 250 we spent on phase 1.
Okay, so that money would
That
then be
money was
gone.
already appropriated, this money was already appropriated by city council, so that cash part is gone.
I just want to know what's going to be left for phase 3.
2 million.
2 million, thank you.
2 million in authorization.
2 million in
Authorization.
It's a technical.
Where's that 2 million on this? Is it, because I'm seeing 1750.
Dan asked me to adjust that to show what was,
Already taken out.
so that way that every time that there's an authorization for cash, that it reduces what we are looking at
So the
for.
250 we just put in, you took off the 2 million.
Right, but,
Plus-
but technically, as everyone's pointed out, the
We
2 million
authorized
bond
you to.
authorization still exists. And the only constraint is that CPA has capped this project at 3.5 million. So like that, they
If you
wouldn't,
go-
you couldn't go
Because we've
beyond
been
that.
putting away
And-
250. Every time we put away 250, it takes a little bit off the bottom.
Which is what I thought we were,
But that was the original
that
plan.
was the original plan, but now we've
Or we
somewhat
keep spending
shifted a
it.
little
Keep spending
bit.
it.
Construction prices just
We
keep going
haven't-
up, we just
we-
keep spending.
We haven't shifted necessarily because we're not bonding.
No, I understand that.
There's
I'm
only
just-
872 left. Am I little yellow highlight here?
Yeah.
That's what's left in the bonding capability based on the 3.5 million, not authority. I'm subtracting what we've already used in cash from that bond because we said we'll put this in and hope to reduce the amount of money we need to bond.
Mhm.
So until the city council approves going beyond 3.5 million, I don't feel transparency wise, because it's in the minutes and everything. It's not like this, I don't know, it may be in a grant, application or something originally, but you can't just go spending beyond the 3.5 million without city council approval,
Mhm.
which anything above 872 you would do. So phase 3, there are gonna have to be some discussions and
So that's down the
you
road.
don't need an authorization. You need people to say, yeah, go for it.
So the bonding availability that you have highlighted here is the same as the bond authorization, or are we talking about two different things?
Two different things. The bonding availability, maybe I used the wrong term, Greg. What I'm saying is what's the balance left from the 2 million that we originally did after subtracting all the cash that we're
Right.
getting out beyond the 1.5 million that was
Right.
already appropriate.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess so.
It's confusing.
Well, I'm just trying to keep separate the, we have a $2 million bond in authorization, which is, but it's different than the pool
So
available.
just if you consider the CPA and city council agreed to spend $3.5 million on phase 2 and
For the whole project, actually, not.
The whole- all of it, right?
Yeah.
of that, at the time, 1.5 million was in cash and 2 million was bonded. Now we've spent another $250,000 above the 1.5 million that was in cash, or we set aside that. So
that just subtracts from, in this case, the bond, the total's still not going above 3.5 million that is authorized by CPA and city council for this project.
We have that bonding authority, so we wouldn't need a council vote to do that.
Right, so.
So the bonding authorization, we just don't have the spending authorization. To go,
Essentially.
There you go.
to go above
Good way
that
to
three
put it.
and a half
Oh,
million.
thank God for spell it all out.
I don't understand it. Yeah, I get it now. Okay.
Yeah, I get it now too. It's,
I think I'm hearing the room that we want to use cash. Does anybody want to bond? Scott wants to bond?
No, it's not that I want to, after listening to Dan Riss, the video of last month, I was ready to want to bond. Because you were very convincing but now listening to Dan Riss this month, and then especially listening to Greg. I mean, Greg with the authority of saying, well, this is about it. It's like, okay, that's all I really need to hear. All that,
Go ahead.
So, but from what you said last month and what Jesse said, I do think it's really important to recognize that, like, we're a little bit getting into uncharted territory. We've been super blessed that we have very rarely rejected anything. We've very rarely felt any pressure about the request. Like, we've had more money than the requests that have been coming in. I do think it, and then maybe we put it on the agenda, like as part of this discussion, we put it on the agenda for next month of coming up with some structure of how we navigate that moving forward, to your point. Because this is like, I wasn't here last month. We did authorize, what were it, 100,000, whatever it was.
120.
You know what I mean? Like, and I think under our normal operating for the past several years, that was in line with what we would do. I think actually, if we have a total, what is it going to be? 450?
319 left.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't think we can just say, okay, one meeting come and then approve $100,000.
No, we're not going to be able to do that.
So I think it's important as part of this discussion, if we're spending cash, that we couple it with saying we're going to have to come up with some structure and public advice, basically communicate to the public, this is how we're going to do that moving forward, whether it's quarterly and internally. This is what we can vote on in an emergent, there's times people come and say, if we don't have this, we're not going to get, okay, in an emergency session, well, our internal guidelines is if it's below X, we can do that. If it's above X, we can't. Because we are getting to if we approve this in cash, which I think we're going to do, we're in a new place than we've been in years.
Do we get a new tranche of money coming through at some point this fiscal year? Isn't there some sort of like?
It's all done at the beginning of the year when the budget's set. We anticipate what we're going to get in the state match when we set the budget, and we make the budget based off that, and then whatever we get in there, actually get in the state match, whether or not it's less than what we anticipated or more than what we anticipated, it doesn't affect our budget until the next fiscal year.
And then we sort of
we reconcile. So if we get less than we anticipated, then next year we'd be like, oh, and we'd have to adjust and fund it some other way.
And where are we in that process with the state?
Typically, we get the state match in mid-November.
The first?
The 15th.
No, there's no, like, sometimes like a second round of.
Oh, yeah.
So
In the past couple of years. Mid-November. So the past couple of years, they've had surplus funds in the state budget that weren't approved at the time that they did that initial match. So they did a second funding, but prior to that, they had actually gotten the timing right. So they were able to give us that additional funding at the same time that they gave us the initial. So it just depends on where the state's at.
Okay, but the November 15th will be the first round of match money.
But it doesn't.
It could be all of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It might not be anything else.
Right.
Scott.
And that, in regard to coming up with some guidance and structure, I'd love to know if there's other communities that are, like, what other models other communities use. I don't know how, you might already know that. We don't have to talk about it now. We can talk about it next month, but I'd love to.
Amherst does it once a year because I've gone through that funding as on the development side as an affordable housing.
Northampton does it once a year.
Yeah,
Technically on the
that seems a little much.
The CPA's.
But maybe if it's below a certain number, maybe it doesn't matter. If it's for a safety issue, it doesn't.
I suggest we take this discussion.
Sure.
I want to do it next meeting. Any info we have that could be brought to that next meeting.
I will make sure it's on the agenda.
We have it. We're supposed to be doing quarterly. according to all the information that's out there for the week of applicants that's on the application form.
We're supposed to be doing this quarterly?
Correct. But then there's never been a desire to actually enforce that because people.
And I would
Since
like
Dan
to.
became chair.
What, did you read my mind?
Not me. Give it out.
I want to be very clear. That was me. I did that because on the finance committee at the city council level, people are waiting for the council to get funds.
You're pragmatist.
And it's already a month.
Right.
I'm not gonna, every time something comes up to finance, I put a public hearing together, it's approved next meeting. That's still a month from the point where it came to us. I felt that way about these. I think the 2 meeting discussion for this, and I'd be okay with quarterly, let's not do anything until we hear. But what I don't like is, well, I don't think yearly is good for these projects. I really don't.
We're a different size than those.
Yeah, and the other thing
Different
is,
budget and a different amount of money.
well, we
So-
shouldn't be discussing, it's not on the agenda.
That's releasing something for now, is it?
Yeah, no, I think we should table it. I think it's
With the thing we're trying to figure out right now,
That's right.
please.
All right, let's decide. I'm hearing that I'd like to take a motion to approve 121,000 from historic preservation, 250,000 from Old Town Hall Retrain City Match, and 507,000 from undesignated funds for a total of 578,000, or I'm sorry, 878,000 for the project.
I'll make that motion.
all second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to fund it using cash, basically.
That's correct.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
You're done. You go to city council.
Yep.
I
Go
have,
to city council, then finance, and city council.
yep, as I said, it takes a while to get funding into people's pockets through government as it is, so.
So just thinking of the timeline of that, is that the end result? Is
Well, let me ask Jamie.
November?
It's
Jamie,
gonna be,
I-
so that
November meeting?
The October meeting schedule's already set. So it's gonna be November 1 will be the,
You'll put it on the agenda?
I'll get the appropriation
What
tomorrow.
happened to the pool? I couldn't get on there this one. Was it supposed to be? Not
For the
pool,
parks.
park.
No, I sat on it too long.
Well, don't sit on this one.
I won't, I get them both in this.
All right, so they'll, November meeting, then a city finance meeting in the second Wednesday in November, and then it'll go to, I will put a public hearing together. Because free cash gets certified in November, so I will be really busy, so I'd like to get these done. That's just. Thank you all.
I hate
Anything
to
else?
screw this up,
Couple
but,
other
yes, but we skipped one item to, we all want to go home, but
Meeting schedule change.
Yeah, no one told under,
I missed that.
Yeah, that's fine, new business. I apologize, I do want to go home. Go ahead.
So I just wanted to briefly remind the terms expiring at the end of December is Greg, Dan, Joe, and Scott. And if you're one of those people, then if you want to stay on the committee, you need to get reappointed by the board or the city council and mayor that originally appointed you. So,
It's Scott.
By the one that originally, I was appointed by Mayor Patrick.
okay, so you're the mayor.
Her call, she'll point.
So,
you're a mayor.
so
If
you
you
need
wanna
to get
stay
your
on-
appointment through the mayor's office.
I got a letter saying if I did nothing, it would indicate my approval.
Okay.
And it would indicate I still wanted to do it. It said, I got a letter that said, if you reply, if you don't want to do it, reply. If you still want to do it, don't reply.
Okay, well,
Not from you? No.
just
I
to,
don't know if that was because it was the mayor's that came from the mayor's office or what. But if you were saying I should follow the mayor.
I mean, I would,
But
You would encourage me to do it.
in the past, the letters used to say, if you want to continue doing it, you
Right.
must apply.
Right.
I was surprised.
That's the opposite.
You had that too?
I got it from the planning board and I'm a member of the.
Right, and so for
Okay.
the planning board, you need to get appointed, if you're like a representative of the planning board, you need to get reappointed to the planning board.
Yeah, I
Get
did.
your planning board terms expiring and then, but Ken, your term doesn't expire until 2025.
2025 now.
So you're good, but it's just Greg,
Okay.
Dan, Joe, and Scott that are expiring at the end of this, at the end of December.
Well, I make a motion to make Greg chair.
You don't make sense.
So, that's not on the agenda.
You
And
gotta
then
wait until there's no more chair.
that's the other one. So we need to have, we'll need to have.
I know you wanna push me out.
We'll need to have elections in January. So thinking about.
Get your signs made up.
Stuff like that.
Well, we will have a city council representative, right?
Yes, but that,
But they may not, it doesn't have to be the finance committee chair. It can be any member of the finance
for
committee.
years it wasn't, it was somebody else.
And I don't know if they'll have organized enough to appoint their new member before CPA votes to,
Dan will make sure it happens.
right, from,
No, I won't be on the council.
No, you got 2 months to figure it out. Get them lined up for January.
What I might do is change the ordinance to 11 members.
You're gonna pack the committee?
Yeah, with me. All right, I didn't really say that. Well, since we
Strike the record.
The video says otherwise.
Well, since sometimes we barely have 5 members, maybe if there was 11, we'd.
Backup, yeah.
No, that would even make it
Wild
worse.
card.
That would make it worse.
All right, so
And
what's
then-
the schedule change?
So that was, in brief conversation, you had indicated you couldn't make because of things going on in Amherst.
Yeah, we
and-
should probably meet after. I do have my public hearing scheduled for Amherst, so I can converse with
Right,
you.
but
and let
then
you
Dan
know.
was saying that switching from the third Thursday would be better for him. So if it's a possibility that people want to switch from a third Thursday to other dates, I can put out a scheduling poll and try to figure out what works for people,
Just for November.
or going forward. If like, I don't know if third Thursdays is always, we seem to have a lot of absences, so.
For instance, if you have those teacher things,
Once a year.
oh,
Just
I'm not gonna
happen-
worry about you.
Just happened to be.
All right, well, think about your schedules, because I wouldn't mind seeing a change, but, that's not fair, because I only have 2 more meetings. That's sad, but okay. Can I have a anything else, Jamie? Is that everything you wanted to talk about?
That's it.
You gotta have more. Come on, you're gonna drag us out a little more.
Can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
There you go.
Nice.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.